Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh
Come on.
man. Oh
Eli going.
David.
Oh.
David, your ankle. Oh man,
Oh,
who's gonna
come on.
block for Najee Harris, man? Jeez, shucks.
Mm,
Oh.
mm-hmm. That's right. Okay, let's go on. And by the way, did you see Kenny Mayne commenting on like 4-year-old putt golf? It was
No.
awesome.
Oh.
I talked to Kenny last night. It's awesome. I think
Yeah.
it's on Twitter or something. Anyway, 3, 2, and 1. We're constantly looking for drum beats in the off season, and there's plenty around the league to talk about, including Gerald Everett as a playmaker. Bloom every single week, and if we talked about it last week, forgive me, but it seems like Gerald Everett is seen as this playmaker by Pete Carroll. Where do you come down on this drum beat? Because it's definitely consistent.
I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical
Because of Pete Carroll?
well, what happened when Jimmy Graham went to Seattle? Did it boost his fantasy value or did it depress it? I
Right.
mean, it wasn't great. Also, I feel like Gerald Everett hasn't really maximized his opportunities with the Rams. He was never a player. So take, for instance, Foster Moreau, Bayou Bengal, LSU. Every time you see Foster Moreau get a target, you think he should get more targets. He can do more with them, even though Darren Waller is going to, truly go beast mode, staying in the Bay Area where the Raiders used to be. So I don't see him as someone that's an overachiever. I don't see this Seahawks pass offense as one that's going to create an overachiever outside of Metcalf and Lockett. And Cease, again, I'm going to circle back to something I think the football world hasn't really absorbed. Russell Wilson won. Russell Wilson got what he wanted. And if you want me to do the glass half full take on Gerald Everett, it's that he's with Shane Waldron, who knows his skill set very well. I would imagine Shane Waldron had his hand in Everett ending up with Seattle, or Seattle offering him a contract that he would sign.
Right.
So but the other idea here is, okay, maybe it elevates him on our preseason watch list, on our waiver wire week 2 list, right? But who are we going to displace from our late round sleepers? Are we going to displace Blake Jarwin? Really? I'd rather have Blake Jarwin. And let's see what happens with Zach Ertz. If Zach Ertz doesn't get dealt, and I don't think he's going to, there's still Dawson Knox. There's still Adam Troutman, although a lot of people like Troutman. There's a lot of guys that we would put ahead of Everett in line. The other thing we're going to watch here, because the other piece of news, just to note out of Seahawks camp, other than Alex Collins is looking good. There's a drum beat for you.
Well, Alex Collins is looking good because he's the last man standing.
Yeah, he better be looking good because if something happens to Chris Carson, a spotlight is on him. He might be actually the injury upside play.
Just trade for Royce Freeman.
Yeah. Levante Bellamy's going to make the team over Royce Freeman, probably.
Yeah. Are you going to bring up the Dwayne Eskridge injury?
Yeah, he has a foot injury. Yeah, and I mean,
for a speed guy, that's pretty bad.
So now, if Everett is the starting tight end and the de facto number 3 receiver, Penny Hart's still there. Penny Hart's looking good too. I'm not going to forget Penny Hart, but that is your path value for Gerald Everett. So I would say watch Eskridge foot. I can tell a story where Everett does finally overachieve, but I need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, and part of this ties into the Russell Wilson conversation, Bloom. Like, part of the reason why I am hesitant on Everett, just because Pete Carroll talks good about everybody, right? He's like Rick Neuheisel getting the acoustic guitar and the s'mores and singing Kumbaya. Like, okay. So it is Pete Carroll, but part of me goes, well, wait a second. They have set up Russell Wilson to, okay, Russell, we're going to do it your way this time, because they haven't been doing it Russell's way, and he was mad. And what happens with mad quarterbacks? They force trades. So does the Russell Wilson thing tie into this to you at all? Because it seems like Seattle went out of their way to be like, okay, Russell, we're going to do it your way, which means more passing and more throwing the ball.
Yeah, more 3 wide receiver sets, more things that make the offense more pass friendly, including calling more passes. So yeah, I think that Russell Wilson is still probably in the right place on the draft board. I think your top 5 quarterbacks are set. Mahomes is going to be number 1. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, 2-3, 3-2, whatever. Prescott and Lamar Jackson, 4-5. By the way, sneak preview of my draft. I don't know what we're calling it now since it's not the master plan. My plan to help you with your draft. Just take the 4th or 5th quarterback. I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson or Dak Prescott. That's where the value is, right? And then 6, 7, what are we looking at here? Like Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers is still in there. That might be ill-advised. Tom Brady. So now Wilson does look like the most attractive quarterback out of that tier because we know that he can produce with those top 5 guys. We have his track record of doing it. He just needs an offense that is conducive to it. And again, it went under the radar, but after the controversy, see, isn't this just like our media? The controversy, front page news, controversy. Resolution, you don't even hear about it.
Right. Yeah, it's doesn't lead. It's propaganda.
No, doesn't bleed.
Don't get me started on the media types around the Broncos. Got some interesting Broncos news I'll save for the end of the show. But I find it funny, Bloom, because drumbeat has been that accepted term. And thank you for giving me credit. But it's the show, baby. Like, it's the show. It's everything that we've done and the, clarity, drink, and all those sorts of things over 16 seasons of the Audible. But I find it funny when, like, I'm writing about Antonio Gibson every other day. Yeah. I get it, Washington writers, including my dear friend Nikki Jabala. What's up, Nikki? So I get it. I understand, right? Oh, Antonio Gibson. Oh, ain't going to do more. And so pick a story, Bloom. Yeah. It's either Antonio Gibson's going to get more catches. Okay, got that. And it was his running backs coach that said that. Like, okay, all right, he's going to. Randy Jordan said he's going to catch more passes. And, well, he should, honestly. And then news item today, Ron Rivera, you can tell that he's matured. Antonio Gibson showing growth. And it's one of those things like when a player debuts, and this isn't Odell Beckham Jr. when he bursts onto the scene. And you and I were saying, like, he can do more. Everyone's like, this is what they've done and this is what they'll be. Like with Gibson, I think it's pretty clear whether it's constant beat writers reporting about Gibson or just, I don't know, logic.
Sure.
Antonio Gibson's just getting started, baby.
Yeah, and you could be optimistic about Gibson without anything to do with Gibson just because they got Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Right.
Or for that matter, Taylor Heineke, and brought back Taylor Heineke because the offense came alive more with Heineke than it did with any of the other quarterbacks.
And I've always said Heineke, who was at the Shrine Game years ago out of Old Dominion, I was like, if that dude was 6'4",
right,
he'd be like a first-round pick. So the smart and accurate stuff, he's 6'1", or 6 feet, whatever. But aren't we over short quarterbacks by now?
We are. We should be. Russell Wilson, right? We definitely are. So the quarterback play is going to be improved, and the offense is probably going to be more aggressive. But then you have these things you're talking about, Cecil. And I'm glad you put this in the drum beats. I was hoping when you served up that we're going to do the top 5 drum beats, is Antonio Gibson going to be one? So there's the whole, rising tide lifting all ships of Gibson just getting more getting more touchdown opportunities and the offense having longer drives, just the whole thing will be good for him. Plus, of course, they have a good defense that's going to give him favorable game scripts. But then enter John Keim. And see, I don't know how long the list is of beat writers that were doing this for the team that they're doing it when we started the Audible. I don't know if John Keim specifically was doing it in 2006, but I feel like as long as we've been doing the Audible, he's been covering the football team, right?
Yeah, was he down in Jacksonville before?
I don't remember.
Because John's been on this show. I believe we had John
absolutely
back the beat writer tour.
Yes. So the point is he knows of what he speaks, okay? He's been covering the Washington football team since 1994.
Oh, there you go.
And he also has written a book about the Browns.
It's John Oser that was down in Jacksonville. Forgive me. But yeah, John Keim, one of the best, consistent, solid reporter, for sure.
Yeah, he's been covering the team since 1994, since some of you listening.
Since Mark Schlereth played for them.
Right. So he has an article today on ESPN. The title is, Antonio Gibson's growth could fuel Washington football team's attack. And see, this is where I'm about to go off on a narrative matters in fantasy football tangent, right? Because going into last year, why was everyone so skeptical about Antonio Gibson?
He's a converted receiver.
He's barely played running back.
Right.
He's barely played running back in his career.
Which was a bunk argument, by the way.
Fair. I mean, you're right that obviously it didn't stop him from being fantasy friendly, fantasy relevant last year. And of course, going back to drum beats and things like that, let us remember that none other than Adrian Peterson himself said after he was released, like, they really like it. They want one guy to do everything. They like Gibson to be that guy. When the players themselves tell us these things, we should pay attention. So maybe when they drafted him, they didn't have that complete intent. But once they saw him and got a load of him, they said yes. But if you did buy into the narrative that, well, he's barely played the running back position, he doesn't even really know how to be a running back, we weren't totally wrong. Because if you read the article, you mentioned Randy Jordan. They were talking about a play, and this is something that I wish Matt Waldman was here. Because the lead to the story, Cease, is that there was a play in practice where it was just a tight zone play. He pressed the line of scrimmage and made a tight cut and got 5 yards. It wasn't a spectacular play, but it was notable because Randy Jordan said last year he would have just immediately cut up field and got about 2 yards. Now he knows where he needs to be and when, and he knows how to set defenders up. He said it's like night and day. Wow. And Gibson said last year was a learning process for me. I started getting the hang of it, but I feel like I'm going to be able to do a lot of different things this year. Like you said, Rivera said he's matured. He's got better field understanding, instincts, intangibles. Ron Rivera putting all those good football words in there. You start to see those come to light. He says it's exciting. And then Jordan said the biggest thing for him is not only as a runner, but a pass catcher continuing to progress. And as a pass catcher, he said, we haven't really tapped into that a lot. Ooh. Oh. So this is definitely one of those excitement. Brian Drake, love the Drake. He said, I don't drink coffee, but reading this article, it must be what drinking coffee feels like. It was great. It was a great quote. I wanted to give him credit on that one. You know, if you thought, well, Antonio Gibson is such a risk, Antonio Gibson isn't really worth investing in because he doesn't even know the position. You were right on that he doesn't know the position part, but guess what? He's learning the position.
He's really good.
Yeah, and we know that physically he's just ideal. So, yeah, this is really, really exciting. See, what was the comparison, right? David Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be surprised, folks. Don't be surprised. And if you do something like take Antonio Gibson, even, hey, you draw a late first round pick, okay? And so you're not going to get a chance to get Antonio Gibson to the end of the third, I don't think. Maybe, but I don't think so. Take him at the late first, early second. Cease. 2-3 weeks into the season. I like to look at the schedule now, right?
Yeah.
2-3 weeks in the season. Washington opens up with the Chargers, the Giants, the Bills, Atlanta. The Giants may be a little bit daunting. Buffalo's defense is solid. We'll see about the Chargers under Brandon Staley. It's the first game in the Brandon Staley defense. 3-4 weeks into the season, we could all say, oh, Gibson should have gone in the first round. He should have gone in the top half of the first round. If he's being used as a receiver where he's getting 50, 60, 70 catches, if he's the automatic goal line option, which he was last year, and now he's running with more subtlety and more patience in a better overall offense on a team that's probably going to win more games than they won last year. Yeah. So this is that time of year. Don't let people tell you you're crazy to reach for a player because you just might see it before everyone else does.
Right. And Bloom, the best way to sum this up is kind of simple and not necessarily hyperbolic, although some may say it is. If Antonio Gibson finishes the year as the best running back in fantasy football, I'm not going to be surprised.
No.
He's just getting started. We don't know where that ceiling is. And with his natural talent, with the defense that you mentioned, always keeping him games, great game scripts, more usage as a receiver. Yeah, Antonio Gibson, RB1, when all is said and done. Sure. Likely that happens. He's probably around 10, honestly.
In the range of outcomes.
Yeah, in the range of outcomes, he's probably around 10. So you get an RB1 value and definitely production. But if he finishes as the best running back in fantasy football, I won't be shocked.
No, you shouldn't be because he has all of those things. I mean, J.D. McKissick will play the role he plays. I don't think we have to worry about Peyton Barber anymore. But he has the talent. He has the opportunity. His situation is getting better. And I'm going to write I'll start a new series this year in the preseason. It's going to be called Unknown Upside. And what it means is we just don't know how good a player can be. They're on the upslope side of their career, or otherwise there's been a change, like, Robert Woods with Matthew Stafford or something like that, where we don't really know how good he's going to be. And that's an exciting proposition for your fantasy team. And your fantasy team should at least include a few of these players. Can be rookies. You get the idea, though. Antonio Gibson, unknown upside. A
few players, not all rookies, though. I fall in that trap, or at least I used to. You played in enough leagues with me to know, like, oh, Cecil's going to make a run on rookies here. Here we go. And there's the Audible Live. Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom. I'm not eating a Werther's original. I'm eating a butterscotch disc. Just because. But because we're going over the hot news items, again, every other day, hey, Darren Waller's really good. Yeah. And he's heading higher. And, God bless The Athletic and God bless Victor Fuhr from The Athletic. Raiders beat writers are always interesting together.
Yeah.
We'll say that. But people around that team tell me, Bloom, he'll be the centerpiece of it. Not Josh Jacobs,
Yes.
not Henry Ruggs,
Right.
Darren Waller. So from the tight end spot, I'm not thinking 1,100. And again, don't want to be hyperbolic, but you have a tight end that will be the featured piece of your offense. This is, again, unknown upside, even though we've seen greatness from Waller.
Right. We were talking about this with Charch on the couch yesterday. Look, in December of last year, he was on a tear, a historical tear. Again, one of his games was among the top 10 individual fantasy games a tight end has had all time. All time. And he was basically playing at that level at the end of the year. So this is one of those questions, like if someone says, well, should I take Bryan Edwards or Henry Ruggs? No, the answer is Darren Waller. You know what I mean? Neither. The answer is Darren Waller, right? So he is going to be a player, or the rare tight end, that the passing game goes through that player. That is how the Raiders' offense is going to be. And we know that Derek Carr is good at executing when a player's getting open, when the player's the focal point of the play. You know, he's a fine quarterback. So absolutely, when you look at tight end, I do think you need to take a tight end early. Take a tight end early and take your favorite sleeper late. Do both. Kelsey in the second half of the first round, you might say, am I really going to take Ezekiel Elliott? I feel like maybe the cliff is coming earlier for him, or do I like Tony Pollard a lot better? Then you get to those running backs. Well, they're not really worth the number 7 pick or 8 pick. Someone like Austin Eckler, or Cam Akers, Nick Chubb. So you think there's Kelsey, but now there's that opportunity cost because you can just take Waller in the second. Waller may approach Kelsey's numbers. He doesn't have a Tyreek Hill to share with, or my man Kyle Pitts probably in the third. Any one of these three could be quote unquote league winners, in the sense that they give you such a strong advantage. You just want to get in on one of the three. I'm leaving out Kittle because it's just situational. If Ayuk and Samuel stay healthy, especially if Trey Lance is the quarterback and passing volume goes down, we're just not as into Kittle. But absolutely, Waller, I was saying this with Charch yesterday, Waller, that was just the opening act, the end of the year, of what's to come. His arrow is still absolutely pointing up. And like you said, Cease, there's just certain things that, how can you be surprised? How can you be surprised if Darren Waller just picks up where he left off and is on pace for, say, a 1,500-yard season a month into the season, is on pace for 100 play? I mean, everything is pointing towards that. We should be more surprised if he looks like he did in October last year.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty simple math. And also, it's position scarcity.
Yeah.
There's only a few of these guys. Now, you mentioned Kelsey. Super quick. It's a kind of a mini drum beat.
Sure.
Timpani, right? Wasn't that the little drums?
That's the kettle drums. It'd be like maybe a little bongo beat.
Little bongo. Little side corner, right? Yeah. Make a little cash there. Noah Gray.
Yeah.
This is weird, dude. This is weird. Now, it's Adam Teicher, friend of the show. And again, you want to talk about longtime beat writers. How long has Adam Teicher covered the Kansas City Chiefs? And I like Noah Gray at the Senior Bowl. It's not like he was the most fantastic thing ever, but he was okay. Looked like a Y, you know what I mean? I think Kenny Yeboah was more exciting for me just as an F, as a receiver, because, fantasy brain, that's what we're thinking of. But we've seen a couple of stories now where it's like Noah Gray's going to play more. Noah Gray's going to have a larger. Noah Gray's going to, and I'm like, well, wait, they got Travis Kelce. Now this comes down to, and this will tie into our Waller conversation, okay? Or we're sneaking another drum beat in. But you know what it comes down to? McCole Hardman's disappointed.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking more Noah Gray, and that impacts Travis Kelce.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. See, there are certain players, we need to come up with a term for this. The collective hive mind out there, I'm sure y'all can do a better job than I can, at least certainly in the next minute. The idea of a player that doesn't have fantasy relevance, but you need to understand what's going on with him because he affects other players' fantasy relevance, right? The player that's going to come to the party and eat the cake instead of the person we were celebrating, Right. And yeah, Noah Gray could show up at the McCole Hardman breakout party, although no one's going to that party anyway, and eat the cake. And really what it is we're looking, right? Is it Byron Pringle maybe? Oh, I like Byron Pringle. Once you pop, you can't stop. So maybe it's Noah Gray. Maybe they all are the number 3 target on different plays. And this is something that we can reckon with. What would it mean if the Chiefs had more 2 tight end sets? What would that mean for Clyde Edwards-Helaire? What would that mean for this offense? But sees again, and Eric Stoner, friend of the show, was pointing out that, man, you look at KC's early schedule: Cleveland, Baltimore, Chargers, Philly, Buffalo, Washington, Tennessee. That sounds like some high-scoring games to me. That sounds like some games that are going to stretch the offenses in both games' capabilities. So we'll find out right away how Noah Gray can affect that. You mentioned Kenny Yeboah, by the way. I want to go back and we'll put this little bonus content in. Remember the name Kenny Yeboah because close of Jets camp, mini camp, no, not a drum beat. What's the opposite of a drum beat, Cease? I don't know, but that's what's going on with Chris Herndon. With Chris Herndon, it's like, yeah, you would think maybe without Adam Gase there. He's still Chris Herndon. The rookie year, we'll always have that rookie year. And that's probably all we'll have with Chris Herndon. But that's Kenny Yeboah, who got a 6-figure guaranteed money as an undrafted free agent, is more of a wide receiver type at tight end, got some speed. It would be interesting to see if Yeboah can be the Chris Herndon party. Like they already turned out the lights and locked the door, so there's not even a cake to eat. But Kenny Yeboah, remember the name.
And got a rookie quarterback that's going to need a relief valve receiver, security blanket, safety blanket. Who was the Boston College guy I made mad on Draft Guys TV? Remember? Because I was like, "You're Matt Ryan's security blanket." He's like, not a blanket.
All I can remember is Joel Dunbar. So I know that's not. He was the linebacker we had.
And I remember the LSU running back who told me, because I was wearing like a black polo, and he was like, "I know why you're wearing the black." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Hide that gut." It's smart.
Was that Leonard Fournette? I'm kidding.
It's smart. It's smart. What else is smart? Signing up for free today at Fantrax. Sign up for free today and be entered to win a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. Simply go to fantrax.com/footballguys and sign up today. Fantrax is the home of fantasy sports. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience of your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and Sig's favorite, best ball leagues. Create or join Fantasy Football Commissioner League. Invite your friends and dominate your draft season. That is Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Fantrax.com/footballguys. Sign up today and be entered to win a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. Once again, that is Fantrax.com/footballguys. What do we think of David Montgomery? Because Tariq Cohen is back. And when you look at, projections or expectations for David Montgomery, there is now a thought that, could he get up to around 1,500 yards all purpose? Like, okay, Bloom, I see you've got him for about 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards total. We'll expect maybe a touchdown regression, maybe, but we're looking at 54 receptions from last year to what now this year with Tariq Cohen. Now, the drum beats about David Montgomery have been very interesting because it's expectations high. And it's, a guy that could do more. And, okay, that's fine. Fluff reports aside, what's the real, when we boil it down, information fantasy GM should be taken away from all of this David Montgomery hype?
I still think you're not taking him before, I don't know, probably the 4th round, to be honest. And I don't know if he's going to be there. I would not take David Montgomery before Chris Carson, and their ADPs are in the same range. I don't know. Carson maybe even going after Montgomery. So this might not say go out and draft Montgomery at ADP or reach for him. However, some of the things in Montgomery's favor, you can really tell last year as the year went on, he stopped thinking as a runner and he just looked comfortable. Mm-hmm. He was running behind a line that was getting a constant push. The Bears' run blocking really came together last year. And they did lose Charles Leno. So they are going to be putting Tevin Jenkins in right away at left tackle. They let Leno go, who's now with Washington, and we're waiting to see where Morgan Moses end up. By the way, that's another reason to think about the Jets' offense, is they could get Morgan Moses. Now our offensive line's better offensive line than the Steelers. Cease. Already they have a better offensive line than the Steelers. Anyway, the point here is that how is this running game, which already has momentum, going to potentially take off, and when is Justin Fields going to play? He's going to play, I don't think it's going to be week 1, week 3, week 5. I think it's going to be before the week 10 bye or at latest in week 11. What's that going to do for David Montgomery? What's that going to do for the lanes that are opened up for him? This team has a very good interior offensive line, and he was clicking behind it. They had chemistry in the running game. We don't talk about that a lot, Cease, but you could really see it. There was a transformation in the second half of the year. It wasn't just that he was getting Tariq Cohen's targets. So I think you're right to say that this could be a sign that maybe David Montgomery loses targets, loses catches, but he gets more yards, higher yards per carry, more touchdowns, and maybe, just maybe, Fields moves this team up a notch because of his running ability, because of his downfield passing ability, because he can actually execute the offense, even just as a rookie, better than Mitchell Trubisky ever could. So absolutely, Montgomery should be a player that we're open to at least staying at the level. Remember, he was a league winner last year. David Montgomery was one of those guys. And yes, schedule matters. If you looked ahead and you saw the schedule he had coming up and you said, I'm going to trade for David Montgomery and see what happens because he has such a weak schedule down the stretch, it worked out. So I think everybody's kind of put that aside. But you're right to say that the drumbeat says, not so fast.
Yeah, Drumbeat also says he's working on his speed. And I've never considered, we've had great debates and discussions about Montgomery. Like, nobody's ever talked about him being fast. Yeah. Does he need to play a little bit faster? Sure. Do you know what Montgomery is, Bloom? And I don't want to put that hex on him, but you know what he is? He's one of those guys that can't sustain a single injury. Like, as soon as he starts getting banged up, because he's got just enough juice. Remember our guy, Tyrone Moss? Right? And I was like, look at him. He's got everything. And you're like, he doesn't have any juice. And that's what I feel like with a guy like David Montgomery, with his skill set. He's very natural. He's very instinctive. He's a determined runner. Bloom doesn't waste a lot of motion.
Yeah.
But he's not that fast. And if you look, Xavier Oman,
right?
You know, let's go down that list of running backs that we used to love. Yeah, I mean, it's just that's who he is. Like, he's going to be solid. He could do a little bit more, still maintain as a receiver, but you just want to keep him healthy because he's not one of the guys, you know, to come back from injury and be the same. He doesn't have enough juice to lose if you are David Montgomery.
Yes. The exception, of course, being the concussion. Because the concussion, he missed a game with a concussion last year, and then that's whenever his tear started. So I think the comparison was he's the Flintstones. Does anyone even remember the Flintstones anymore? You remember the Flintstones episode? I brought this up on the show last year. This is like bringing back a greatest hit, right? When the bowling ball it fell out, I think it was in the closet, and it hit Fred on the head. And then he thought he was like an Italian lover, right? He had like a sports car and everything. Remember? They just turned him into this new man. So I don't want to make light of concussions, even though the Flintstones writers did. Anyway, I just think it's fun to revisit what David Montgomery did because I didn't win a league because of him, but I got to the finals, and I shouldn't have. So thanks.
So thank you, David Montgomery. You bring up the Flintstones, Bloom. We end every one of these shows with Bugs Bunny. Yeah. So even though our man Chase doesn't like it, shout out to Chase Stewart. He told me that years ago. He's like, I don't like the Bugs Bunny. And I'm like, sorry, dude. Ever since 2003, when I wanted my own radio show, I was like, if I ever get my own show, I'm going to finish every show with Bugs Bunny. So that's why you get Bugs Bunny.
You're my go-to Bugs Bunny expert, too. Wasn't there a Bugs Bunny episode? We were talking about this. The 8-year-old Noah is getting into Mozart because he read a book, Magic Treehouse, like a kid's series book about Mozart. Now he's listening to Mozart. It's amazing to hear like Mozart coming from his room. Like, wasn't there a barber? It's the Barber of Seville.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a Bugs Bunny, like an episode that was all based on that? Yeah.
Remember he's doing the thing across his head.
Yes, I kept thinking of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it. Bugs Bunny watching cartoons. It got classical music into our life as a kid. So that's something.
That's something to talk about. And what else to talk about? I saved it for the end. I got a little Broncos note to wrap up the show. Okay. But the David DeCastro thing, our man Zari asked a little bit earlier in the show, like, what does that do for Najee Harris? Because the latest Najee Harris news item that we have at footballguys.com, and make sure to sign up for our free daily newsletter, news written by me, Bloom, Joe Bryant, hottest news, worry less, win more, footballguys.com. Sign up for that free daily newsletter. And thank you guys for that. The last thing I wrote about Najee Harris was like, he's set up to be a star. That sounds great. And then David DeCastro gets released today.
Yeah, look, again, we talked about this last week. One of the few places, I don't like to toot my own horn, but one of the few places anywhere in football media that you were hearing about this potential David DeCastro story was here. And not just last week, but yesterday when I had Paul Charchian on the couch. I wanted to bring this to people's attention because sometimes the things you can get from beat writers aren't from things they write in the stories, because there are certain things that are just informed speculation that you don't necessarily publish, but on a format like Twitter, where you're just sharing your thoughts. When you saw Trey Turner, who's now a Pittsburgh Steeler, come in for a visit, immediately in unison, all the beat writers said, "Uh-oh, what's going on with DeCastro? That doesn't sound good."
Yeah.
Because he was at the facility but not practicing. And even Mike Tomlin, I should pull up the quote because it's like an all-time Mike Tomlin quote. He said something when he was asked about DeCastro last week. He was like, "If there was an injury or situation, something that I thought was important, I'd say it was important." You know? Okay,
Way
Mike.
to give up the goods, Tomlin.
Yeah, okay. Well, it was important. And look, this is so funny, Cease. And it really shows you when people are coming into a story late. Because what did I see immediately after David DeCastro was released? Fans of different teams, like whatever, Seattle. Or,
Giants, Bears.
Yeah. Let's go get him. Don't you understand what's happening? He probably can't play football anymore. Or at least he's afraid that
One of
he
those
can't play
guys that
football
take
anymore.
a year off and then come back, maybe.
Maybe, but the ankle's bad, and he's exploring his options. So the Steelers released him, and it wasn't out of left field if you do what we all should do. Again, narrative belongs in football analysis. Why would the Steelers bring in Turner? I mean, guard was the stronger position than tackle on paper. And DeCastro saves the team. Isn't this sad, Cease? Because it saves the team like $8 million in cap room. I said they should just go sign Steven Nelson. Just go bring Steven Nelson back. Whoops. Well, it ended up the $8 million or so we got freed up from Nelson. We got it freed up. And just funny story. Are you cool? Are we cool? Are we still cool? That we're getting the paper, the contract that we tore up. We're taping it back together.
We're good, right?
We're all right. So. Yeah, I mean, Turner is good. Look, I will say this, Cease. Turner is a good addition for a team that is trying to go away from a finesse offensive line, for a team that's trying to reestablish a physical edge in the trenches, for a team that wants to establish the run. Evan Silva gets a penny every time we say that, right? So that much of it might not be that bad for Harris. If there's one player who could come out of this okay, or at least no worse off than he was before this, it could be Harris, because Turner is going to be a road grader. Turner is going to be somebody that, in some ways, can be a tone setter in a way that DeCastro couldn't in the run game. But when it's time to pass, or otherwise, if you're looking for any cohesiveness, what's the cohesiveness here? Kevin Dotson, who was a rookie last year, Chuks Okorafor is going to switch positions. He played some last year. He started some last year. But there's no continuity at all. See, this really strikes me as a situation where we're going to watch the Steelers struggle. They come out with Buffalo, and they get the Raiders, Bengals, Packers. Rashawn Gary, by the way, another player, the Drumbeat. Then Denver. And I think we're going to see struggles. I think this could be a situation where we have to pay attention. Steelers bye is week 7, which could be very important for them, because that could be the time that they say, okay, we know what we have to work with here. We understand what we do well as an offensive line. We see where the problems are, because it's going to be a work in progress, truly a work in progress, because not only do you have inexperienced players, not only do you have new starters, you have an offensive line that is still trying to figure out who goes where, Cease, right? Like once they get into camp, like the plan might be to line them up this way, but then once they see everybody in camp, they might say, well, the Bills did something like this a few years ago. And this is where Adrian Clem, all eyes on you, man, the offensive line coach, just got promoted. Because it isn't even, Cease, just which 5 are the best 5. It's how do we arrange them? What's the right combination? And I think this is going to be a discovery process, and you may not like discovering how it's going to affect at least the Steelers' passing game early on.
Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom here on the Audible Live, and a little bonus content. And you don't even need to be a Patreon to get it.
No.
Is the Broncos talk. It is a Broncos show. Now, I talked to Kenny Mayne yesterday, and he straight up said, I think it's foolish to predict where Aaron Rodgers will go. But notice how that is said. Not foolish to predict, if he leaves Green Bay, but foolish to predict where he'll go. Now, we're watching the Davante Adams situation. I wrote about that on our newswire. Davante Adams and his extension, he publicly has already stated he's watching the Aaron Rodgers thing, Bloom, and I think that might be strategy because guys usually stay out of other players' money and situations, right? Hey, what do you think about the Aaron Rodgers thing? Well, hey, I love Aaron, but I'm working on my deal, and we'll see, and blah, blah, blah. Adams didn't say that. I think Adams is trying to put pressure on the franchise. So here's what's going to happen. The Green Bay Packers will offer Aaron Rodgers the deal to make him the highest paid quarterback annually, not bigger than Mahomes' length, but bigger than Mahomes per year. He'll say no. They'll say we did everything. But the Adams news is the latest news. Don't give me he renewed his Green Bay golf membership. I could give a damn. That doesn't matter to me. The Adams situation, I think, is much more important because Adams is probably trying to do what he can to put pressure on the team to get something done with Rodgers.
Yes. Well, everybody, right? Everybody associated. I was talking about this with Chart yesterday on the couch. And the panic. I mean, Cecil, you've covered the Bronx for a long time. Is there ever a moment that you would say that the feeling in the building was panic? No. I mean, it's not.
No.
It's panic with a capital P, full on panic right now. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think you have James Jones and John Kuhn, part of the Packers family coming out saying, this is going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Because it sure doesn't feel like it's going to be fine right now. So absolutely, I think that most of anything that is said publicly referring to or adjacent to the situation is going to be to try to come up with a peaceful outcome for this. But I do think that what we should be planning for right now is, I would say that trade is the smallest possibility. And it's small, like less than 1%. I don't know. Maybe when we get to August, I'll start upping that number. But for your fans in Denver, I would say let's not get too excited about this. Let's not.
I say wait till the middle of August.
Exactly. Let's revisit it in August. But right now, I'm not projecting that as a strong possibility.
He's got to say no to their deal. They got to offer him the deal first. That's right. How it happens.
Right. And then the other possibility, of course, is that he's just not going to play, and we'll see how long this goes. It may go the whole season. I think that if he doesn't show up week one, this is one of those ones where, the probability of him not showing up week one and then like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are the same, right? It's just like, Does he show up week one? And then I'll tell you the other weeks.
Yeah.
So I think that we were planning for there to be no Rodgers or for there to be Rodgers, but not plugging him into another team's roster. Not yet. And it's scary. I mean, I feel for Green Bay fans out there that know that we've been watching too much soccer season. The Euro 2020 is great, by the way. The Euro 20 has been fantastic. It's an own goal, I mean, this was totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary that we've spent so much time and energy on this story, starting with the moment that they moved up for Jordan Love. And I think it's just a waking nightmare right now that they hope they can wake up from.
That is a wrap for tonight's Audible Live, everyone. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Bloom, you want to see something cool?
Ooh, yeah.
Look at that.
Oh.
It's coming soon. Yeah.
Wow.
Artist Jay Peterinetz, who we've hired. You want to see more of my independent comic, just check out smokingguncomics.com.
Weren't you wearing some Gravis kicks? Were you wearing?
Yeah, I was wearing some Gravis kicks at the comic book show. So yeah, smokingguncomics.com, everybody. Anyway, appreciate all the love. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks for following us on Twitter. And as always, he's Sigmund, I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Stay tuned and stay frosty.